welcome back to our show. Today I'm going to talk about All the President's Men, which is the film adaptation of the book of the fall of President Nixon. You should generally know what this is about. I mean, you may not have seen the film, but you really should have at this point. So it's about two reporters from Washington Post, Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein, and they are low-level reporters with Washington Post, and Woodward is put onto the initial break in the Watergate just to go there and find out the details at the courthouse. He's there to fill in the blanks and then probably passed up, if anything else happens, or passed up to a more major league reporter. He's there just starting out, really, to get his feet in the door. That said, he's not like a major reporter, and Carl Bernstein is also a minor reporter who is a bit more show busy than Woodward. Woodward's the straight arrow type, and Bernstein's a more flashy type. So those are the two types, and they're given this, and based they're both in orbit around this Watergate thing. They both know there's something else there, and that they're given the leeway by the Washington Post to actually follow up and put in the man-hours to actually investigate it. And it's a slow process of unravelling all these conspiracies close to the White House. So, we should all know that story. The event happened, a book was written. Now, basically the commentaries and the behind the scenes, one thing to talk about is the fact that the book was Redford, who was producer on the Star, got interested in the book before there was a book. He was interested in articles as it was happening, so he contacted them during what was happening, and he bought the rights to the book as soon as once it was done. So he wanted to do this film. So it was like one of his projects. What also happened was most people were sick of Watergate, and most people were saying, why are you doing a Watergate film? We've all heard about it, it's all been in the news all the time. Everyone's sick of Watergate, just shut up about Watergate. So the idea of making a film with this is almost as like doing a film with the Vietnam War in the late 70s. You know, it's like people were sick of hearing about it, they didn't want to know about it. It was like, get that away from us. So it was that kind of subject. But it was about the downfall of a president, which everyone knew about. It was all over the newspapers. But this was the key ways how it happened. Now, what the film makes clear is they were not the only people following this story up. There were other newspapers that were also following the story up, and they were in competition with them. But no one was quite sure if there was a story. And the reason why no one was sure there was a story is because it all sounded so stupid. It was like, people didn't believe it because it's like, there's no way people are going to be that dumb and do this. There's no way people who are in incredible power would do anything too stupid. Which is always the mistake people make, is like suggesting that if someone's ambitious enough to get into power that they wouldn't make stupid mistakes. So, the film is based on looking at the book, but what it does is it stops the story halfway through the book story. The book goes all the way along until Nixon gets brought down. The film is actually about these two guys learning the information and slowly building a case that there's something else here. All they have to, the end of the film is that halfway through the book where they make the case that Haldeman, who was a special advisor to Nixon, was behind a fund that actually did all these break-ins and did all these horrible things, and that was the key to take down Nixon. So they ended at a certain point. They didn't rush through the story. They actually stuck to what was interesting in the story. What was interesting in the story was the idea of starting from almost nothing and then slowly unpeeling the situation to find out what was actually going on. And that's the strength of the film, basically. Now, the film is wonderful. The big thing the film had was that the studio would not finance it unless there's some stars there. And because Redford was the star, he had to play one of the characters, even though he's too old to play characters. So what he did basically was he emphasised that this guy, even though I think he was about 40, he still looked pretty youthful. And he emphasised that this guy was, even though he was a young reporter, he'd done other stuff, but the equivalent of the reporter years at the post at the time, he was a young reporter, because a lot of them were much older. And then he also brought in Dustin Hoffman as Carl Bernstein. So the two contemporary actors who are both too old for the parts, but both of them, but you didn't have one who was a bigger star than the other, and you also didn't have one who was much older or younger than the other. So you could maintain the illusion. And he also cast a lot of established actors on top of them. So the guys playing in the newsrooms were like established character actors that people knew were powerful and who could talk down to these two big stars and everyone say, yeah, of course they can. So they had Jason Robards as Bren Badley, the guy who was actually the top of the chain, and he can intimidate anybody. You had Martin Balsam and Jack Warden as two of the main editors who were overseeing the investigation. So you had like a lot of heavyweight actors there. They also hired like top level people for the film. Alan Pakula was brought in once the first draft of the script had been written, and then he worked on it with Redford. They also brought in Gordon Willis, who'd done the two Godfather films to shoot the film, but also make it quite dark and quite paranoid, so you'd always a sense of threat. They would cast a lot of young upcoming actors in small parts, so that you actually got a sense of weight to the characters. And everybody in film was a good actor. You know, they knew what they were doing, and they could create scenes with the other actors to create a sense of a person, even though you only know one or two scenes with them. But also the script was based on the facts, and were very kind of focused upon that. Now, the script is the most controversial thing, because it went through a lot of rewrites. William Goldman was brought in to write the script, and basically what he said was, the thing he brought to the script was structure. Like, he structured it as, you stop at a certain point, and it's a detective story until then. And that was the big thing, the important thing, is focusing on this. During the time he had to deal with basically Redford and Pakula, they had their own vision of the film as well, and they felt, I think, that the Goldman original script had some problems. It was maybe too filmy, it was my guess, because Goldman's a smart arse writer, and I think, and this is the smart arse thing he's ever written on. He won the Oscar for it, but I'm guessing he was more smart arse when he wrote it, and he pulled back a little bit and pulled stuff out and went back to the resources, but he worked out the structure of it all so you could adjust to what he'd come up with and then adjust back to reality a bit more, and that probably got the balance right for the film. But I mean, the impression you get that him and Goldman and Redford weren't getting on very well during this time, because who knows, maybe different visions of what the film should be. But the combination of Pakula, Redford and Goldman actually created a good balance for the film. I think if you lost one of them, the film wouldn't have worked as well. I think all three of them were needed. But the suggestion was some of the Washington Post people weren't very happy with the original script, because it probably was a bit too Hollywoody, and then they pulled back slowly. Because Redford was the creative director of the film. He was the producer. He was the one who was focusing. He was hiring Pakula, he was hiring Gordon Willis, he was hiring certain actors. The other people said, maybe we should have someone different, and no, we're hiring this person. So he had a vision of what it was. This is before he started directing. And that was obviously very important. But obviously it was also important, as if you look at Redford's career as a director since then, he's very reliant on the script, because if it's a good script, it'll be a good film. And if it's not a stronger script, he can wander off. and I think he had a good situation, a good initial script that could be adapted. So I think that was kind of important. And Peculiar's the same way. Peculiar is a very talented director, but he could also be a bit of a wanderer in the story wise. I don't think this is as good as Clute or Parallax View for me, but it's still an excellent film. It's still Peculiar at its best in the 70s when there was a reason to be paranoid. But the film does take in the idea of what was important was the investigation. It was the nuts and bolts of the investigation. And that's what comes across in the film as the idea of them running into brick walls continuously. It wasn't like, oh, there's a conspiracy, or we have to investigate. It was like, what does this mean? And we have to be tied to the facts. So Woodward would be focused on making sure the information and been clarifying it. And Bernstein was jumping ahead sometimes and saying, this is obviously reality. And why you're resisting this. And the idea is both had something that actually helped the investigation. One had focused on the facts. Another one was like, there's things we already know, we can chew it, that we can aim towards a little bit more. So it was kind of a case of they needed both of them on this, because both of them had strengths and weaknesses. The other one kind of balanced out, because one of them, Woodward, was a Republican, the other one was a Democrat. So they had political differences, but they were both focused on the story, so it meant the actual investigation was balanced. And because the editors on top of them were been very focused on keeping to the facts, and Bradley was very focused on keeping to the facts, it created a sense of, we're going to be very careful with this. We're not going to jump through hoops and try and suggest stuff we can't suggest. We're going to be careful. We're going to investigate slowly but surely. And this film shows that they have to go through lots of go into the library and check out who checked out certain books to try and establish the idea that they were trying to, the Republicans were trying to work on taking down Edward Kennedy at a certain point, who was another Kennedy they were scared of. There was also find through other details about who paid money to what, and why did that happen, and where did the funding go, and essentially you also have Deep Throat, who basically was an FBI man who did not agree with what was going on in the White House. He also had his own political reasons for doing what he did, but he also did not agree with them. And the idea is, he was giving them information. He wouldn't tell them, he would keep them in the right direction, but he wouldn't tell them information. And he was saying, follow the money. You just have to follow the money, and that's what will take you to what you need to find out. And that's what kind of focuses them on following, like, who was doing what within the Republican finance committees, and that's where the money was getting hidden. And then slowly but surely, that's how they put together who controlled this fund, where did the fund go, why was the fund illegal, even though it shouldn't have been, even though it's what should have been a normal fund for re-election was actually being used for illegal purposes. And so that's a very difficult thing to actually get through, and very difficult to get people to talk about, and it's something any government's secretive about. So that actually creates a problem for your protagonist that is unsurmountable. You have to slowly peel away, and that's what the film's about. It's like slowly peeling away, but also it's like having the character beats and details so that you understand what's the stake, who these people are, and you're defining them as they go along through this investigation to find out what they want to know about the investigation, what's actually important to them. And it's always about focusing it, but not making it feel like it's something where the plot's leading you. Even though they are following the plot, it's like, what's important about this to the actual story of what we're following, the actual overall horror of what's happening. The film's very careful about that, about following that thread and making sure that you understand the reality and the importance of it without hammering you over the head with what's going on. But doing with that, what they do is they create a sense of paranoia, like who's watching them, who's paying attention to them. There's a sense the first third of the film, no one is taking them very seriously because they're junior reporters and no one cares. Not even the own people care until they start to slowly put things together. And at a certain point, people start to pay attention to what they're doing, and so that becomes dangerous. they are getting spotted. People are getting warned about them, that these guys are actually out there and they're far more wily than their reputation suggests. Because eventually they had the idea of no one sees them as important, so who cares? And at some point they started putting together too much stuff that actually was important and was dangerous to the next administration. So at a certain point they were going to get watched. They were going to be, people were trying to follow them. And everyone was trying to figure out who Deep Throat was afterwards. And there was even funny stories about them actually, people trying to phone the scriptwriters to try and find out who it was. Did they really say, Deep Throat really say this? Because if it is, I know who it is. And he goes, no, that was just an invention for the actual script. That wasn't what he actually said. It was just something to make it more dramatic. Oh, damn. You know, that's the thing. It's like everyone get paranoid. But the film was very good at creating a sense of paranoia, and that's by the Harold Gordon Willis, who created a great paranoia for The Godfather, and he was known as the Prince of Darkness. He was very good at lots of shadows. The funny thing is, in this film, there's shadows when you leave the Washington Post building, but in the building it's all very bright. You know, for the Prince of Darkness, it's not actually very dark for half the film. But when you go out, there is a sense of danger, slowly including danger, especially as we go further into the film, in the sense of lots of people are watching, lots of people are scared for their jobs, and the closer they're getting to figuring it out, the closer they are, the more dangerous it is for them. And they know their phones are getting tapped and all the rest of it. And it's also, the big thing this film really focuses on is they have to get everything exactly right, because if they get it wrong, everyone will come down on them. But if they get it right, they might deny it, but they won't be able to call them a liar. And you have to be very careful the whole way through. And they make one mistake, and it's a minor mistake, but they always get crucified for it. So that creates this sense of how dangerous it is to take on a government. It's like, they've got all the lawyers ready for you, so you have to be very careful what you say and what you do. And it's like how dangerous it is, and that's one of the things the film does, is how dangerous it is, especially for some of the Washington Post to actually stand by the story. And then they're getting accused of being doing a witch hunt against the Nixon administration throughout this time, because no one knows what's actually going on, so it just looks like a witch hunt. And Jason Robards is very good at being casual, but also warning the reporters, like, don't screw up. It's like, this is dangerous stuff we're doing. So you have to be very careful. And there's when they do screw up, he actually stands by them, but also warns them, do not screw up again. In other words, you screw up again, you're out. So that's very good about how dangerous it is to be a reporter during this time. So the film is excellent. It really works as entertainment. I'm also a suggestion of the time, and a good encapsulation of what was going on during the time. And the big thing was, for a film that everyone thought was going to bomb, people were sick of Watergate, it was a massive hit, because it kind of focused everyone wanted to know about Watergate into one film, and focused on how the investigation went through, rather than focusing on the White House. Instead of being about the White House film, it was about an investigation into the White House, and that's what made it click with people, because it was like seeing what was going on, that it brought down Nixon rather than just being about another film about Nixon and how corrupt he was. So it found a human touch within this vast conspiracy. So yes, you should have seen All the President's Men. It's available on Blu-ray, it's available on streaming, you can buy it quite cheaply. You owe it to yourself to watch it. And especially nowadays, when we've now got another government in America that could be doing everything this film warned against. I said could, just for legal protection. So go watch it. It's wonderful, and it is very timely now. So that's me for now. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you all later.